hours I've researched insomnia, thousands of hours, thousands of reading research papers and abstracts, and just everything I can get my hands on for insomnia. Tons of practical research. Just, I have literally hundreds of bottles of supplements of things that I've tried for insomnia. So it's been a journey, and I'm finally starting to get some breakthroughs and get some understanding. So it all builds, and that should just go to show that never give up. You're gonna get your breakthrough sooner or later. You just gotta stick it out. Never give up. That's the key. You never want to give up and just say, I give up. I don't know. I'm just gonna do whatever the doctor tells me to, or whatever. Don't give up. Then we don't want to know how many people die under doctors' care. Doctors are the third leading cause of death in the U.S., so just keep that in mind. Nobody knows your health like you do, and it's your responsibility to figure it out, and you will get the victory, and you're going to get all the help you need from all the sources you can, and I hope that I'm a source for you, that I can help you. And you're going to conquer your health. You're going to get over it. You're going to figure it out. All right, so let's see. What should I talk about in this video of insomnia? Why don't I just kind of go somewhat backwards, maybe kind of go, interweaving or whatnot. I'll just say what comes to my mind as far as insomnia, and I'll continue a series. This will be part 1, and I'll just make a series of all of them together. I can't really tell you exactly how I'm going to go about this. I don't know. But it's going to be good. I know so much about it that it can't go wrong. So let me just tell you what I'm doing right now. Right now, I've found 2 things. The most important thing that I just stumbled upon is something about REM sleep. And what that is about REM sleep is that there's 3 things that are shut down. 3 neurotransmitters that are shut down in REM sleep. And I'm going to really hate myself if I get this wrong, but histamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine, as far as I can remember. Yeah, histamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. I think maybe it's not norepinephrine, maybe it's dopamine. I'll write it in the description underneath the video. I'll take a look. But it's 3 things that are shut down in REM sleep, okay? I believe that they're norepinephrine, dopamine, and histamine. I'm pretty sure that's it. But anyway, regardless, one of them is histamine, so that's totally shut down in REM sleep. And you may know that antihistamines help a lot of people sleep. Sometimes, some people, they don't help sleep, just like melatonin. Sometimes melatonin helps, sometimes it doesn't. I'll get into melatonin next after I talk about these 2 things that I'm doing right now. So, antihistamine. A great one is doxylamine succinate. And the reason that one's great is because, 1, it crosses the blood-brain barrier, which is necessary to help you with your sleep. If it's just a antihistamine that is like somatic or whatnot, just like the body, and it doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier, then sure, it's going to help you with your allergy symptoms like nose and throat and lungs, maybe, I guess, all that type of stuff, but it doesn't help you sleep. It has to cross that blood-brain barrier for it to help you sleep, because, there's histamine being produced in the brain, and an excess of histamine will keep you from basically going into REM sleep. So if you're like me and you fall asleep and then 4 hours later you wake up, maybe sometimes with no dreams, maybe sometimes with nightmares starting, then that means that you are producing something that's preventing you from going into REM sleep. So those 3 options are, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, dopamine, norepinephrine, and histamine. So it turns out that if you're overproducing one of those, you won't be able to go into REM sleep, because you won't be REM sleep if you have those neurotransmitters firing. Those neurotransmitters need to be shut off for you to enter REM sleep. So if you're like me and you get 4 hours of sleep and wake up, then you're most likely, because that's the time when you're going into REM sleep, is that 4 hour time, 4 to 6 hours, you'll start to go into REM sleep. So if you're waking up in that range and having trouble falling back asleep, then that means that you're having trouble going into REM sleep, and one of these neurotransmitters is firing too much. So for a lot of people, it's histamine, and that's what it seems like to be for me, because if I wake up, I can't go back to sleep. Like after 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours max, I just can't go back to sleep, and it's every night. But if I take, about 6.25 milligrams of doxylamine succinate, I can fall back asleep. So that shows to me that I'm trying to go into REM sleep. My mind is trying to shut down these neurotransmitters. Histamine is not getting shut down fully, and then I wake up because I tried in a REM sleep and it just doesn't work well. So pop a little bit of doxylamine succinate. Also, diphenyladramine, which is Benadryl, also works because it crosses the blood-brain barrier. Any nighttime antihistamines will work because they're nighttime antihistamines, because they make you drowsy because they cross that blood-brain barrier. So that's one thing I'm doing. Another promising place that I found is insulin and blood sugar. My blood sugar runs high. It's in the 90s. I mean, I'm just killing it with my diet, just eating like all vegetables, and it's just really not bringing it down. I really need to work on my blood sugar. It's concerning to me. So anyway, it might just take some time to get it back down. I mean, it's been years when I've been indulging in breads and sweets and all sorts of insulin-provoking foods, so I'm probably just insulin resistant, and it's going to take me some time to get my insulin resistance down and to get my blood sugar down in the 70s fasting. So anyway, it's in the 90s fasting, and I noticed that, if I eat something when I woke up, that was one of the things I noticed that helps me fall back asleep. And the reason that is, it seems from my research on myself with the blood glucose meter, is that when insulin is released in the body, you get drowsy. And I don't know if that's, I'm still in the process of researching why that is, like if it's interacting with adenosine receptors, which, adenosine is definitely linked with tiredness. Caffeine is the adenosine antagonist, so that's why it keeps you up. But it binds onto adenosine, so it's like, some people who have trouble sleeping like me actually get a reverse reaction from caffeine, like it can make you tired. And I think that's because it's binding adenosine, and since there's not enough adenosine or something, like the receptor kind of thinks, oh, this is some adenosine, finally, I need this, and then you get sleepy. But, because the caffeine interacts with the adenosine receptors, so usually it blocks the adenosine reaction so that you don't get sleepy, but sometimes it can actually, the body takes it as adenosine, and it can make you tired. So usually that's probably for more sleep deprived people. I don't know. If anybody knows more about that, that'd be good. So those are the two things. Insulin. Bump that insulin up. I actually have some insulin I can inject and stuff, and that does help, but that's kind of dangerous. You just have to be careful that you don't go hypo. You don't inject too much insulin. And usually I'll inject about, if I want to bring my blood sugar down about 20 points, I'll inject about 3 units of insulin, which is not very much. I mean, 3 units is barely any, because I'm not diabetic necessarily, so I don't need that much. So that, or you could just eat foods that provoke insulin. I mean, things like nuts will provoke insulin without raising your blood sugar, so they can make you sleepy. Anything sugar, carbs, stuff like that. I just don't recommend those. It's not. So that's the balancing act. Is okay. Yeah, you can provoke insulin and make you sleepy, but at what expense? Am I spiking my blood sugar again? I mean, it's not necessarily a healthy thing to do. So that's why nuts are good, because they don't raise your blood sugar, but they do raise insulin to help make you sleepy. All right, so those are the two things that I'm doing. One thing I want to look into, which one of my doctor friends recommended, was growth hormone, and that can definitely make people sleepy. I definitely need to look into that. I mean, growth hormone just isn't something you can easily come across. I mean, it's much easier to find insulin than growth hormone. But I'll look into that, try some growth hormone. With things like my chin and my brow, maybe. I don't really look like I'm low on growth hormone. I kind of look like I'm high-ish on growth hormone. But maybe I could use more. We'll see. So then, I want to talk about melatonin too. So let's just keep it to these three things. I mean, this is plenty to talk about. Insulin. What was the other one? Blanking. What else did I do? Oh, antihistamine, doxylamine, succinate, or diphenyladramine, insulin, growth hormone, or adenosine. Those are also kind of peripheral ones. And then, and let me just talk about that. Adenosine, there's one adenosine agonist that will make you sleepy, and that's wild lettuce. So wild lettuce extract is a good thing to hit those adenosine receptors and make you sleepy. Especially if you're taking caffeine. I think wild lettuce would be a good kind of antidote to caffeine. So that's cool. I'll try some wild lettuce tonight, maybe. It's definitely a good one. I mean, there's not that many things that work for me, but definitely wild lettuce does. Insulin does. Antihistamines do. Melatonin, I want to talk about that. And usually for a young person like me, melatonin's not going to help us. I mean, you can ask a lot of young people, hey, does melatonin help you with sleeping? And they'll usually say, no, it doesn't help. But if you ask older people, I'm just going to lay down here. If you ask older people, melatonin does usually help them. And a reason that I have come to conclude with that is that the pineal gland, which makes melatonin at night, the pineal gland gets calcified. Yes, it gets calcified over time. And why that is, I don't know. I would have to suspect it was either fluoride in the water over a long period of time, or just probably, what it is probably just over drinking calcium. I mean, just drinking milk. I mean, drinking milk you shouldn't be doing. Maybe some goat milk once in a while, but, like I used to be, I would go through a gallon of cow's milk a week. I mean, it's just horrible. I mean, it's really bad for you. I mean, not only with calcium, but also radiation, that's definitely a good concentrating source of radiation, especially nowadays with the Fukushima, whatever, nuclear reactor that's melting down, all that radiation coming over. I mean, the most dangerous thing with that is cow's milk, because the cows in California are going to get contaminated with it and just concentrated in their milk, and you don't want to be drinking that stuff. And then also it's just super high in calcium, and probably leads to calcification of the pineal gland. I mean, that's probably the reason. Alright, so anyway, the pineal gland gets calcified over time, probably from drinking cow's milk. And it stops producing melatonin. So that's why melatonin helps these people so much. Older people typically that have calcified pineal glands. So melatonin helps them sleep, but for us young people, it's probably not the cause. It's probably the cause for us is overproducing histamine. It's these mast cells that become sensitized for some reason, probably stressful situations, probably post-traumatic stress disorder spectrum disorder of that. Because, I've had some pretty freaking stressful stuff happen to me in my life, and I do remember the time when I started getting nightmares and not being able to sleep and stuff, so, probably that, post-traumatic stress disorder, spectrum disease, that's probably what I have, and my mast cells became sensitized and they overproduce histamine, not allowing me to go into REM sleep. Oh, and I did get a sleep study done, and doctors were just like, you're got slight sleep apnea, but nothing serious. And they basically just wrote it off as whatever, They gave me some Ambien and Flonase to help me breathe a little better at night, and they sent me off. But they never realized, or they never at least pointed out to me, that I have a severe lack of REM sleep. 6% of my sleep is REM when it's supposed to be 25 to 30, especially for my age, which I'm 27, by the way. So, I'm very low in REM sleep, and if you're waking up in the way that I am, after about 4 to 6 hours, you just wake up and you just can't go back to sleep, you're probably very low in REM sleep as well. So, good to take just a small dose, 6.25 mgs, which is a quarter of a pill of doxylamine succinate, just right when you wake up, to help you get another few hours of sleep. Also spiking your insulin by either injecting a little bit of insulin or eating some foods that provoke insulin could also help you fall back asleep. Adenosine, such as the adenosine agonist wild lettuce, can help you sleep. Passionflower also helps me. That's a bunch of things. I'm kind of drifting off into the abyss there with all these different things I've tried, and I'm going to make another couple videos filling in some of these gaps and also other things I've tried, and I'll talk about Ambien and how that does help and things like that. So it's a good start. It's part 1 of my insomnia